Okay, here's my voice. Enjoy it. The subject matter is Danny's verse he brought up. I brought up Ezekiel, he brought up Israel's remnant. Isaiah 4:3 starts the discussion. Always, when you're reading a Bible verse, go a little before it. Find the beginning of where the idea starts to be formed. Read what is ahead of the exact passage you want to understand, and read somewhat after that passage too. That is a really good doctrine or habit to form in yourself in order to understand these really, and it's not light Christianity or medium. This is the heavy duty stuff right here. This is what's really going on behind the scenes. It's disclosure. To move along, I don't like to my ADD kicks in. Israel's remnant taunts Babylon is this translator's title of this idea. So this this is not part of the Bible, but it's a help for the student. And it has come to pass that in Jehovah's giving of you, Israel, the rest to you, Israel, from Israel's grief and from Israel's trouble and from sharp bondage that has been served upon you, that you have taken up the simile, that's not smile, concerning the king of Babylon. You've taken up the saying against the king of Babylon, how has the extractor, the taxer, the oppressor, the murderer has ceased. Ceased is the golden one, alluded to Daniel chapter 2, the head of gold of the king, the image of Babylon. Got to move along, but if you want to reference Daniel chapter 2, ceased has the golden one, broken has Jehovah, the staff of the wicked. This guy, he's the center of the storm, the scepter of all the rulers. He's the one who has the authority. And he deals that out to governors and subkings. He who is smiting the peoples in wrath. It's not for justice, it's for just malevolence. A smiting without intermission. He who's ruling in anger nations and pursuing without restraint. Nobody standing against the king of Babylon. Arrest, quiet has been the earth. They have broken forth into singing. Why? Because the king of Babylon's dead. Even the firs have rejoiced over these, and the cedars of Lebanon. This is referencing the people that helped build the temple with Solomon. But this is before that happens. It's the king of Babylon here. These are the peoples that have moved out of Israel proper and have mixed with the nations around them in Turkey and Syria, their modern names, and on over into Iberia and just Spain and stuff like that. All these peoples who later on helped build the temple are all rejoicing. This guy's dead. And it's important to the discussion of Satan. And this is the main thing that we want to keep the main thing of the entire chapter. Since thou hast lain down, the hewer cometh not up against us. So, not that they're a kingdom of trees like in Lord of the Rings, but they keep growing up and being cut down and being bombarded and stolen from these external kingdoms around Babylon that they used for spoil to gain pirate word booty to win treasure. But Sheol beneath the earth has been troubled at thee to meet your coming in. So it's talking still about King of Babylon. It's waking up for thee, Remphan. That is the name of a demon. It's a point. Who is behind the King of Babylon? There's his name right there, Remphan. All the chief ones of the earth, it hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of all the nations. 4:6 of all the nations, 4:5. He who is smiting peoples with wrath, smiting without intermission. He who is ruling in anger, nations pursuing without restraint. At rest and quiet is the earth. They have broken forth into singing. Even the firs have rejoiced over thee and thy death. Cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou hast lain down, the hewer come not up against us. So Sheol beneath has been troubled at thee, meeting thy coming in. It is waking up for thee, Remphan. So he's going into bondage. He's one of the demons that are chained down. All the chiefs ones of the earth, it has raised up from their thrones all kings, all nations. All of them answer and say unto you, even thou hast become weak like us, and died. You say you're God, but you die like a man. It's not hard to understand. Just got to get into their head. Brought down to Sheol hath been thy excellency. The noise of your psaltery. It's a reference, Daniel, to when the king's name was spoken. They were supposed to break out the psaltery, little few stringed instrument, looks like a little bow, like David, King David is portrayed as having. The noise under thee spreads out, hath been the worm, covering thee is the worm. He's still jamming on the king of Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar. How thou hast fallen from the heavens. Well, King Nebuchadnezzar didn't fall from the heavens. What just happened here? Just like in Ezekiel, talking about the prince of Tyre and the king of Tyre, calling the actual king of the earth a prince, and the spiritual entity behind Tyre a king. So we've just gone from Babylon to the power behind Babylon. How you have fallen from heaven, shining one. Other versions it says son of the morning, just to knit together Bible versions. Son of the dawn, thou hast been cut down to earth, O wrecker of nations. Who's wrecking the nations? Well, before it was saying King Nebuchadnezzar, now it's saying this son of the shining one, son of the dawn, Satan. We'll get to that. The proof you need. And you said in your heart, to the heavens I go up, and above the stars of God I raise my throne, and sit in the mountain of meeting on the sides of the north. Just like there's a left side and a right side of hell, where Jacob's bosom and hell, where people are deposited until judgment day. Not the good side, good and bad side. There is a side of heaven where It's not good and bad, it's good and better. So it's at the side above the stars. Whoa, back up. Shining has cut down to earth, weaker than nation. Thou said in thy heart, I go up above the stars of God. I raise my throne, and I sit in the mount of the meetings in the sides of the north. Evidently, this is a physical place that is actually above. It's the ceiling above what God calls heaven, and where his throne resides. A lot of people think heaven is a dimensional out. This is saying that heaven is a physicality place in this universe. Sorry. This is why I have that belief is passages like this. Let's go down a whole block. I go up above the heights of a thick cloud. This is Satan, God, repeating what Satan is saying or thinking. It doesn't make that clear. But the heights of a thick cloud was pretty high, a thundercloud, imagine, for the writer of this, because always this hinges on the writer's ability to understand and transmit the essence of the thought of God onto a piece of paper. So it's kind of a team effort in every case, prophecy. Not that the prophet is equal with God. That's a whole nother discussion. But it has to be understandable to the guy that's speaking. Thy beholders, only unto Sheol, same place that King Nebuchadnezzar went to, you will attend. You will be locked down. Doesn't say when here. And this is the man, and in Sheol it says, this is the man causing the earth to tremble, shaking the kingdoms of the earth, is the implication is in our language. He hath made the world a wilderness, and his cities hath broken down. His bound ones, he is open not to the house. So his servants, he's never let into his kingdom. They're on the periphery, and there they'll stay. All the kings of nations, all of them, have laid down honor, each in his house. The reference is that Satan doesn't do that. He doesn't have a system whereby you can do something that pleases Satan and stand up and be counted more gloriously in his kingdom. And thou hast cast out of thy grave as an abominable branch, a raiment of the slain thrust through ones of the sword, going down into the sons of the pit as a carcass trodden down. Big passage. Takes 30 minutes to explain that one passage. We got to move along. Take a note. Thou hast been cast out of thy grave. All the kings have laid down in honor, each in his house, people of honor. And you have been cast out of thy grave. God is saying, you were a person of honor in my kingdom. Now you understand the start of dissecting that passage. Thou art not united with them in burial, for thy land thou hast destroyed, thy people thou hast slain. Not named to the age, is the seed of evildoers. This one connects to the passage 14:19. 14:20 is saying, "Thou art not united with the evildoers in burial, for your land has been destroyed." Who owned this earth? Who was in charge of this earth before Adam? This guy. God is telling you he was his manager of earth. He was the God of he was the Elohim of the sons of God of this earth. Thy people have been slain, the fallen angels, not named, to the age, to the end of the age is the implication, is the seed of evildoers, the cast of caricatures, the 1/3 of the stars of heaven that fell with Satan. Prepare for his son's slaughter. Prepare you for his son's slaughter because of the iniquity of their fathers. They rise not, nor have possessed the land, nor have filled the face of the world with cities. Now, this passage here can't be understood without Ezekiel and understanding about the fallen angels cohabitating with the daughters of men and creating Nephilim. Okay, so again, huge discussion. Let's move on. We've got ADD. And I've risen up against them. The affirmation of Jehovah of hosts. This is in the text. It's not scripted. So who Jehovah has risen up against and have cut off, in reference to Babylon, the name and remnant and the continuator and successor. So in what's called a chiasm, it starts talking about Babylon. It inserts Satan because Satan, it's like playing Sudoku games. Satan is the reference in the middle, and then it ends with Babylon again. This is a way of doing what was that called? I spoke to them in similes so that they would not understand. Now, the truth is, this is a simile, and unless you have been deep diving into the Bible, you're not going to understand this stuff. And so it's beyond, but it is to normal people understand. If you ask, I'll tell you. And have cut off in reference to Babylon the name and the remnant. And let's bring that name and remnant to the top where you can see it. I wish it left a sentence from the last panel so you could follow along. And I've risen up against them, the affirmation of the Jehovah's of hosts, and I've cut off in reference to Babylon the name and remnant and continuator and successor. The affirmation of Jehovah, he double saying it. When they double or triple say things, it's a way of undergirding and supporting. It's a way of giving emphasis. That's the word. And I have made it for a possession of bittern, some animal, and ponds of waters, and daubed it with the mire of destruction, and the affirmation of Jehovah, third time. So who's he talking to? He's talking about King of Babylon at the beginning. He goes to Satan. He comes back to the King of Babylon. He says what happens to him and his kingdom, and how he, God, in triple affirming this, says, and this is going to happen, and ain't no way it's going to be stopped. Remember, this was written what? Trying to think off the top of my head, I don't know, and I'm not going to take the time to go look it up. We'll put that at the end. Sworn at Jehovah's a host 4 times. He's in a God mode. God gets this way. He starts going, then he just completely goes. And another thing concerning the king of Assyria, sworn at Jehovah of hosts, saying, as I thought, so hath it not been, and as I have counseled, and it stands, to break Asher in my land and on my mountains, and I'll tread them down, and I'll tread them. God is not a pushover. This is to break Asher in my land. Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, take heed. And the peoples that descend from them. And turned from off them hath this yoke. By the way, that's where the Khazar come from. Yea, this burden from off their shoulder turneth aside. What was the point of the chapter? We're rejoicing as a nation of Israel, the end and the death of Babylon. In Daniel chapter 2, it names all the kingdoms of the earth from Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greco-Roman. Okay, start over. Babylon, head of gold, breast of silver, Media and Persia, belly and upper thighs, Grecia, legs, kneecap down, iron, and the feet of the iron of Rome mixed with the potter's clay. Could mean Israel, could mean Christianity. Either way, it's a mixture that shouldn't stand. This is the image of Babylon, and the image of Babylon is smote upon the foot by a rock hewn from the mountain of God in Daniel chapter 2. This is what its culmination. This whole chapter is saying Israel's rejoicing over that thing talked about in Daniel chapter 2. Who's behind it? The king behind it? The spiritual king behind the king. And he's naming other kings that were a part of this process of attacking God's people. The council that counseled all the earth, and speak to Asher, my land, my mountains, I tread them down, and I turned from off them hath this yoke, yea, this burden from off the shoulder, I turneth this. It's no longer the burden of Israel to fight this fight. God's doing it. For Jehovah of hosts has proposed, and who doth make void, and his hand is stretched out, and who doth turn back. And again, it goes on to Philistia, the Philistines. Another burden. We're in a place where it's talking about burdens. But I want to go to Israel's remnant taunts Babylon. And I want to go to the keyed version. And now we can't see that that idea header, but here I've got it saved, Isaiah 14:2. Out thou art fallen, and watch how this works. You go up here to Bible, and you can search these terms. I'm just showing you how to open the window. When you Jehovah, and it'll tell you how many times, and okay. We know how to use eSword. What's nice about eSword is we get to hover over the original Hebrew word. See the H349, and then in the New Testament it'll say G for Greek. So H349, if you click on it, Aka, and you can pull this up. And you can get what was in that box right there. Prolonged, how, also where, how, what. But we can get that in little boxes. So we don't need to have that open. We can open up our window. Akah, how, Nafal, how you have fallen, Mene Shami, from an unused root meaning to be lofty. Mene, preposition. From among the high places. Halel, Lucifer's name in the Bible. Brightness or morning star. That's what that word means. And this one is bane. Something you're not getting. Bright morning star in the King James Version is not cutting this. This is saying Son of God. Now you know why East Sword Key is so important. Thou hast said, I will thou, Atah, has said, Amar, in thy lebab, heart, in your breast, in your courage. I, Allah, will be lifted up. Shama, I will be lifted lofty up to the sky. You see how you can follow this your own self, even though you have no skill as a Hebrew or a Greek scholar. That's why this is so important. And you could just read as if it was Hebrew in English. And look up, and the dictionary pops up for every word for you. We've completed the point of the video, and I'm going to post it now. It's Saturday, my kid's birthday. Have a happy birthday.